So warm welcome. Today we're going to be looking at a game from 2008 where 17-year-old Magnus Carlsen, who played against Anatoly KArpov, the legend and former world champion, in the Tal Memorial. And in this, by this stage, Magnus, even at the age of 17, was actually rated 120 points higher than Karpov. And it really showed. He was 27.75 at the time. Karpov was 26.50, 26.51. And Magnus, in his own way, kind of shows no respect during this game in the sense that he was going for the win from the beginning of this game. And we can see that in the way that the game followed through. And so we began with d4 by Magnus, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, b6, g3. Then we have the queen to Indian defense by Karpov. Then we get bishop to a6. We get b3 by Magnus, protecting the pawn. And then we get bishop to b4 check by Anatoly Karpov. Now, what would you do here to defend? How would you defend it? What piece would you develop to defend with white? Well, you might think a good move would be possibly to stick your knight here. Allows you then to develop your bishop onto this diagonal. But that would be a mistake, because if you played knight b to d2, it allows, can you see what it allows by black? Well, it allows black to drop bishop to c3. And then after rook to b1, it allows you to play bishop to b7. And even if you play g2 here, you can now play the rather nice move of bishop to e4. And the best move, the computer move here, is actually just to castle and allow white to win this pawn. And then after knight takes the bishop back and the bishop pushes back to b4, black is up an exchange. So the game is still slightly in white's favor according to the computer, but you've lost an exchange. So an interesting way to see that not always what you think is the best move is the best move. And so as a result, Magnus defended with bishop to d2, and here Karpov dropped back bishop to e7. We get knight c3, d5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, e4 by Magnus. So Magnus is building up the center pawns here. And then we get bishop to f1 by Karpov. And after king to f1, that means that white now is going to have to waste a few moves, 2 more moves to get this rook out, the king safe properly. And here Karpov played knight to f6. Better would have been to trade off, but he didn't. Magnus goes bishop to f4, and then we get castles by Karpov, king to g2 by Magnus, bishop to b4, knight to d5, which is now attacking this pawn on c7. So we get a6, knight takes c7, rook takes a7, and then a3 by Magnus. Karpov pulls back to e7, and obviously if Karpov takes, the game is going to be a lot more balanced. But instead of Magnus maybe possibly going to c2 to protect his knight from being taken by the rook, giving up the 2 pieces for the rook and the pawn, instead he goes d5. And this is where I'm talking about, where he had that level of disrespect in a good way, that he says, you know what, I'm just going for it. I'm going for this game. Karpov, you come and stop me. And here Karpov kind of buys into Magnus's aggression by playing an aggressive move himself. He plays knight to e4. And as you can see, Chess.com says that this is a tactical miss. It's saying that you should be trading off this rook for the 2 pieces. But here we see Magnus then plays d to e6, which is a great move. Then we get g5 by Karpov. Karpov really, he's just not happy with Magnus here. He's going all out attack. So what does Magnus do here? Well, he plays the blunder of knight to d5. And why is this a blunder? Well, a better move would have been e takes f7, and if rook f7, we get queen to d8, bishop takes d8, knight to e6, and after g takes f4 and knight takes d8, you see that Magnus is up a clear pawn in this endgame. So that would have been a better move. Instead, Magnus played knight to d5, which is a blunder. So we get g takes f4, then we get rook takes rook to e1, we get knight to f6, and then we get e takes f7 check. And what would you do here? Would you take back with the king, or would you take back with the rook? Well, if you took back with the rook, you get this interesting and very disappointing situation where you play knight takes e7 check, lining up the queen, and so the queen has to take back, and after rook takes, queen d8, and rook to e8, you win another pawn with the queen, and white is up 3 full pawns. Here on the pawn count, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got 3 here, and you've got the exchange by black. So white is in the driver's seat in this position. But instead, he plays knight takes f7, and king to f7 rather. Can you see how Magnus follows this up? Well, he plays a great move of knight to g5 check, and then Anatoly KArpov makes a bit of a bad error here by going to e8. We say it's a bad error. It's the best move according to chess.com's engines, but we'll see why. Because say if you went to g8, then you would have knight to e7 check. Again, you're in a bad position because you're going to lose the rook here, and so e8 is the best move, but it's a terrible move in the sense that the game has completely gone away from Karpov at this stage, because Magnus now plays f6. After rook to f6, which is the only move, you get queen to h5 check, and here Karpov makes a fatal error by playing king to d7, which allows rook to d1 check. After blocking with the bishop, you get with the rook, you get rook takes d6, bishop takes d6, and then queen to f7, attacking the rook behind the king. So you get another blunder by Karpov, which is bishop to e7, and then after playing rook to d1 check, it's all over.